Is this thing on? Hello? Hello? Whatever. We're live. What is up, guys? It's Alex Johnson here, the founder and lead analyst at yardsperfantasy.com. Welcome into the 135th episode of the Feed Me Fantasy podcast. Let's eat. So, two of my favorite running backs coming into the NFL draft, during the NFL draft process this year, were Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong. And now, heading into week 15, both of these guys are on the radar. Both of these guys are relevant with both Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris in question for this week against the Raiders. So which running back, if we have to choose out of that Patriots backfield, who are we leaning towards? So kind of break it down this way. It's going to be a committee. It's going to be a committee. No doubt about that, right? The Patriots, notorious for committee specialized backfield going back a decade and a half, right? Until they get to Ramondre Stevenson, of course, who is just exceptional across the board in all phases of the game. As a runner, receiver, he's explosive, all that. So he gets the bell cow work. That's not going to be the case with Kevin Harris and Pierre Strong. They're going to split that backfield. Now, Kevin Harris is going to get, he probably gets more carries in this scenario than Pierre Strong. It might be close, but he's going to get more carries. He's going to get that in between the tackles, grinder work. He's going to get the short yards opportunities. Pierre Strong is going to get his carries as well, but he is going to be involved in the passing game. He's going to be that receiving back. He's going to be the one getting the checkdowns, the screens, running a few routes out of the backfield. And that's where the value comes. We know that targets are more valuable in fantasy football than targets more valuable than the carries. So we're going to go with Pierre Strong. And then on top of that, he is more explosive. He's got that 4.37 speed. He's the fastest running back at the NFL Combine this year. So he can take one carry and take it to the house. He can pick up the chunk yards. He can make the big plays. So between that and the passing game opportunities, we're going to lean Pierre Strong in this committee, if that's the way it plays out. Now, there's also a chance that Damian Harris comes back. They rush him back off of his injury. They're like, you know what? Ramondre's out. We need you. And they push Damian Harris into the starting lineup. In that case, Pierre Strong is still going to have some value. He's going to have an opportunity because he's going to be involved in the passing game still, because Damian Harris doesn't catch passes. He catch a few here and there. But Damian Harris, he's not going to get that bell cow work that Ramondre was getting. So even if Damian Harris plays, Pierre Strong is still going to be the passing downs back. So he will still have some value. But that's my little rant about the Patriots backfield. Today we are really here to talk about the dynasty moves you should be making with your dynasty teams right now, the moves you should be making right now. We got the buys, the sells, a few of each, and then we're going to finish things off like we've done the last few weeks with a guy you should be keeping stashed away on your bench for 2023 and beyond. And then, of course, after we get to that, once we finish all that, we'll get to your questions on TikTok and on YouTube we'll wrap up the show answering questions. Whether they're dynasty questions, redraft questions, whatever, we'll answer them all. But before we do get too far into things, let me remind you to get on Underdog Fantasy. They have playoff best ball tournaments drafting as we speak. So if you think you know who's going to be in the playoffs and they're going to go far into the playoffs, especially these teams that don't have a bye week, you're going to have a major advantage in these drafts. It's like a $10 entry, I believe. You get $100,000 in prizes. Get on there. And if that's not for you, you can also draft a weekly team. It's basically DFS in snake draft form, which is pretty cool. We all love to draft, right? That's what we love about fantasy football. If you take the draft and combine that with DFS, it's a perfect opportunity on Underdog. Or you can play their pick'ems where you can take the overs or unders on the player props of your favorite players. And when you sign up for Underdog, use promo code YARDSPER. That's all one word, YARDSPER, to get a $100 deposit match. Just go to UnderdogFantasy.com, download the Underdog Fantasy app, and you can also use that same code, YARDSPER, to get a 125% deposit bonus on BetUS. With the fantasy football season coming to a close, I know, it's sad, it's heartbreaking. I can't believe it's here already. We're in the fantasy playoffs. The season is almost over. But there's really no better time than right now to get into sports betting, especially with the NFL playoffs, the Super Bowl right around the corner. That's going to be the most fun time to be betting on the NFL. And it doesn't have to be in the NFL. You can also bet on pretty much any other sport imaginable. BetUS is the platform that I recommend to get started on. They've been around for 3 decades. They have a smooth, easy to navigate platform, and they have exploitable lines. That's the most important part. You can win, you can profit on BetUS. So to sign up at BetUS, use that promo code YARDSPER, get your free money, start betting. Easy as that. The first buy for Dynasty that we're talking about today, though, is Drake London. Drake London has not had the season that we envisioned for him when he was taken as the 8th overall pick and the first wide receiver off the board, at least from a raw numbers standpoint. However, his peripherals are pretty special. Per playerprofiler.com, Drake London's 28.1% target share sits at number 10 among all wide receivers in the NFL. His rate of targets per route, which is 30.1%, is number 8. He has 2 12-target games this year as a rookie. And he's had a 30% share or higher in 5 games, including 50%. 50%. He saw half the targets in week 13. The only problem is, obviously, the quarterback is terrible, and the team averages 23.1 pass attempts per game. That's pathetic. Only the Bears have attempted fewer passes. Still, Drake London ranks 13th in red zone targets and top 24 in both air yards and unrealized air yards, meaning he is not just seeing targets, at least within the context of his own offense, but he's seeing valuable targets. So London is a quarterback upgrade away from being a top 10 dynasty wide receiver. And help could be on the way as early as week 15, with the team announcing that they are turning the keys over to rookie Desmond Ridder. Marcus Mariota is going on IR. Ridder is going to be the quarterback rest of the season. Whether Ridder is the answer or not, like long-term, is to be determined. But one way or another, we can anticipate better days ahead for Drake London. He's my top buy in Dynasty this week. Another rookie, let's stick with the rookie class. This rookie wide receiver class for 2022 has been special. It's been really good. I mean, we don't have necessarily that elite Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, but we have just a handful of really, really, really good wide receivers. So another one of those guys that I'm buying is George Pickens. While quarterback play and overall offensive efficiency has been the problem for George Pickens as well, we just talked about that with Drake London. Pickens has shown enough to get excited about his future prospects. Pickens has scored as a top 24 wide receiver on 4 occasions, including twice inside the top 12. The weekly results have varied. They've been all over the place, up and down, up and down, up and down. But Pickens has consistently seen opportunities down the field. He's top 20 in both air yards and unrealized air yards, while ranking 6th and 7th in average target distance and deep targets, respectively. And that's per playerprofiler.com. And as we predicted after the NFL draft, it did not take very long at all for Pickens to come in, supplant Chase Claypool for that wide receiver 2 job in Pittsburgh. And not only did he push Claypool down the depth chart, but he ultimately gave the team enough confidence to move on from Claypool altogether. They traded his ass. And the funniest part of it all is, do you remember the NFL draft? Do you remember who went out there on the podium in front of the crowd? Where was it? Vegas? On national TV, and announced the pick that the Pittsburgh Steelers were drafting George Pickens? That's right. It was Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool went out there, announced the pick of the guy who just a few months later was going to steal his job, push him out of the team, take over that wide receiver 2 chair in Pittsburgh. That's just hilarious to think about, looking back on that. And there has actually been a few moments this year where it kind of almost felt like George Pickens was pushing Deontay Johnson for the top spot. And I know he's been all over the place. He'll push Deontay for a second, and then, we don't hear from him for a few weeks, but it's been there. So with the continued development of Kenny Pickett, we can look forward to a breakout 2023 season for George Pickens. I'm counting on it. Let's go one more buy before we get into his sell. And it's another wide receiver. This one's not a rookie. Second-year guy, Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman was one of my favorite breakout candidates coming into this season. And while it was short-lived, he showed just enough for me to continue to be excited about his career moving forward. It's been a rough start with injuries. Been rough. He had the injuries last year. Now he's got the foot this year. It's been tough. But there's been enough there. All right. He started strong with a touchdown in each of his first 2 games, including a 100-yard outing against Miami. And in his 5 healthy games, Rashad Bateman commanded targets, averaging a 21.5% target share across those 5 games. And his targets per route ranks top 25 among all wide receivers. He ranks top 15 in average target distance and yards per route, while ranking 8th in yards per target and leading the NFL. That's right. To this day, he leads the NFL with 19 yards per reception. And those numbers, of course, as usual, courtesy of playerprofiler.com. And of course, it is a small sample size. I totally get that. Totally get this is a very, very small sample. But it's at least a window, a peek into Rashad Bateman's ability to command valuable opportunities. He's getting the down the field targets. He's not just getting volume, he's getting targets, down the field opportunities to make plays. So he also displayed a great ability to get open by winning on 51% of his routes, according to Player Profiler's route win rate metric. That ranked number 13th. He's also sitting at number 10 in average yards of separation from his defender at the time of the catch. He's getting open. He's running these routes. He's a really good route runner coming out of Minnesota. And he's creating separation, which I mean, that's the number one thing that we need from a guy, right? Everything else comes from that. You know, he's once you get the ball in his hands, he's good after the catch. He makes plays down the field, but he's getting open. He's getting separation. And finally, Bateman ranks number 13 in Player Profiler's production premium metric, which compares a wide receiver's production to average or to league average in similar situation, like down and distance, field position, stuff like that. So the bottom line is Bateman is good. Rashad Bateman is good. He showed us that despite the small sample size this year. We didn't get to see much from him, but it was enough to confirm that he is as talented as we believed coming into the season and coming out of Minnesota last year. So hopefully he'll have a healthy offseason and can stay on the field in 2023. The cost is very low in Dynasty right now, so I'm taking advantage. All right, so if we're buying in Dynasty, we have to be selling in Dynasty, right? Like usual, if we're buying, we're selling, we kind of got to go both ways. So a couple guys I'm selling this week. I know this one's probably going to be kind of controversial, but it's Christian Watson. It's Christian Watson. I know we just talked about Chase Claypool a few minutes ago, and when we talked about George Pickens. This Packers rookie wide receiver, Christian Watson, is giving off some Chase Claypool vibes. Remember how hot Claypool ran with his touchdowns during his rookie season? After struggling to carve out a role in the first half of this year, Christian Watson has suddenly come on to score 7 touchdowns in the last 4 weeks. And he, like Claypool in 2020, also had a 3-touchdown game. So there's some parallels here. While there are indicators that Watson will not have that dramatic fall that Chase Claypool is experiencing as we speak, there are some good metrics on Christian Watson that we can point to and be like, okay, all right. The insane touchdown rate, though, is not going to be sustained. We all know that, right? There's no way. He scored 7 touchdowns in the last 4 games. That's not going to continue. I mean, it might continue for a couple of weeks if it keeps running hot with the touchdowns, but over, a longer period of time, variance is going to come into play. Regression is going to come into play. In fact, right now, Christian Watson's dynasty value may never be higher than it is right now. So what happens when he's competing with actual wide receiver talent rather than, like an Allen Lazard or Randall Cobb or Romeo Doubs for targets? Bring in actual competition. I'm not holding Christian Watson long enough to find out what happens. So I'm selling him. So I know the chat's going in TikTok and YouTube. We got some questions. Do I answer the chat? Yes, I do. But right now we are doing a podcast. Once the show is over, which we got one more guy to talk about, after that, we answer all your questions. So just hang tight. All right. So one more. Actually, we got 2 more guys to talk about. But one more guy's going to be quick. One more sell. And that's Jerry Jeudy. I know this is like a wide receiver only episode. I didn't plan it that way. It kind of just the way it worked out. Jerry Jeudy is coming off that 3-touchdown game, right? So his value's up there. This is the sell high opportunity for Jerry Jeudy. I'm doing it right now. Anywhere I have Jerry Jeudy, he went on the block this week. The second he scored those 3 touchdowns, he's on the block. He's on the block. I'm taking offers. I'm making offers. Because Jerry Jeudy has never proven to be, in 3 years, by the way, 3 years, he's never shown that he can be the guy that commands a high volume of targets. He's never been that guy. And he, once again, is outside the top 35 in target rate. That's targets per route. He's outside the top 35. He's still not commanding targets, despite his target competition being Cortland Sutton, who looks like a bust, right? He's not. I mean, what is it? Montrell Washington, Kendall Hinton, I mean, come on. This guy should be having a 30, 35% target share every single week if he's, what everybody thought he was coming out of Alabama a couple years ago. And he's not being that. He hasn't been that guy. So I'm selling Jerry Jeudy. Last guy we're talking about is Sky Moore. He's the stash of the week. We loved Sky Moore coming out of college, even before he landed in the Patrick Mahomes offense. Unfortunately, his rookie season has not quite played out the way we had hoped, right? It's been very disappointing for Sky Moore. From multiple muffed punts, I don't know why they continued to keep putting him back there to return punts. Clearly was not comfortable. I think he returned one punt at Western Michigan. He's got dropped passes. He's just completely just struggled to carve out any sort of role in that offense. It's been a disaster. But when we consider that, one, he was an early declare from a small school, we can't be all that shocked that it's taking him a minute to get acclimated to the NFL. I mean, we very, very, very rarely see a small school wide receiver come out early and then also get drafted in the second round. So this is a rare thing for Sky Moore. It's one of the reasons why we loved him so much. So we can't be that surprised that it's taking him a minute to get things going. But there have been some positives, some things we can hang our hats on for Sky Moore, like his back-to-back 5-reception games in weeks 11 and 12, for example, or his 2.15 target separation on Player Profiler, which would rank among the best wide receivers in the league if the sample was large enough to actually qualify to rank. So coming out of Western Michigan, we've loved Moore's combination of speed, explosion, versatility, and quickness. He's a dynamic playmaker who lined up all over the formation in college. The Chiefs have both of their top wide receivers, Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, on one-year deals, so there could be more opportunities for Sky Moore in his second season. That's the show. Now we're going to get to your questions. Appreciate everybody who tunes in, asks these questions. I'll kind of scroll up a little bit, see some of the ones that we missed. We'll start. I know we saw one here on TikTok asking about, as I said, I'm putting some guys on the block. Don't you have a trade deadline? So obviously the premise of this show is Dynasty, right? And there are a lot of Dynasty leagues who do have trade deadlines, but there's also a lot of Dynasty leagues that do not. There are a lot of Dynasty leagues that just don't even have a trade deadline. It's a lot different than redraft leagues. So if you don't play in a lot of Dynasty leagues, maybe, the thought of not having a trade deadline is kind of foreign. So there are a lot of leagues that do not have trade deadlines. But a lot of this can also be, I tried to construct this episode in particular, to be able to translate it to a couple months down the line. Most of the stuff will still hold up. That when we get to the offseason and those leagues that did have trade deadlines open up the trading doors once again, most of the stuff should still be relevant for that time. So we got a couple questions on YouTube. If you're not following on YouTube, just go to YouTube, search for Yards Per Fantasy, subscribe. We added a ton of subscribers this year, so I really, really appreciate the YouTube audience as well. So Quail Man, he's asking this week 15, should he start Adam Thielen, Deontay Johnson, or Josh Palmer? So I got my rankings up. I did them last night, actually. So I'm guessing these three guys are probably ranked pretty close to me. I would probably lean Josh Palmer, which I know feels kind of nuts because now that we have Keenan Allen back, Mike Williams back, he's kind of been demoted back to that wide receiver 3 chair. And even the 4th, 5th option in the passing game altogether, when you include, Gerald Everett, in an Austin Eckler. But Josh Palmer has a fantastic matchup this week against the Titans. We saw Justin Herbert was absolutely fire in week 14. So I just think Josh Palmer has greater upside than those other two guys. Deontay Johnson, he's all right. He gets some targets, but there's really no upside there, especially if they're going to be starting a backup quarterback. And then Thielen, they got in the end zone. But he's going to be against the Colts, who I really don't see that game turning into the shootout that we would want it to be, with a bunch of passing opportunities for Kirk Cousins to get a bunch of targets to Adam Thielen that he would need to really give us a ceiling that we would want. And I think Josh Palmer gives us that. I think Palmer gives us that. So I would lean Palmer there. Hayden is asking, do you think John Mechie will be a good wide receiver next year? So let's assume that Mechie gets through his treatment. He's 100% healthy, has a full off season, full training. Let's just pretend that all that's going to be good. Let's hope, right? Let's hope for him. John Mechie was kind of one of these guys that I didn't really have a super strong opinion coming out of Alabama last year. Like, he was, there's some things that we liked about him, but he was kind of just felt like he's being propped up because he's an Alabama wide receiver, right? But he did have a couple of seasons where he was productive alongside some really good wide receiver talent, like Devontae Smith, like some of these other wide receivers who came out of Alabama the last couple of years, who I completely am blanking on. But he had some productive years alongside those guys, which is important. That is important when scouting wide receivers coming out of college. But he's going to be a slot guy. There's not a lot of target competition there. I don't think Brandon Cooks is going to be back in Houston next year. Nico Collins, he'll be working on the outside. You got John Mechie in the slot. They really need a quarterback upgrade in order for Mechie to have any chance of, being a productive fantasy asset. So as of right now, I'm not looking at John Mechie as somebody that I'm excited to have on my Dynasty rosters. So more likely than not, the question is, will he be a good wide receiver next year? More likely than not, my answer would be no. No. Swift or Pittman, I'm assuming this is week 15. I'm going to go DeAndre Swift. He still has a lot greater upside than Pittman because he's just in a good offense. He's in a really good offense right now. The Lions offense has been absolutely on fire. They've been playing really, really well. I know he's in the three-headed, disgusting backfield committee. But 2 weeks ago, he played the role that he was in earlier in the season where he was scoring 17 fantasy points per game. And he had 21. So I think he has a greater ceiling. Pittman's going to get some volume, but that offense can absolutely crater to an absolute disaster at any moment. So really, if I have other options than Pittman, I'm taking them. So I think Swift over Pittman would be the way I would go. Thoughts on Jeff Driscoll, if he can be put in as a tight end. So I saw that, I believe it's Yahoo, the platform that is allowing Jeff Driscoll to be played as a tight end, which is insane. The dude doesn't play tight end. Doesn't make any sense to me. But if you have that opportunity, this is a guy who, if he's going to play, the tight end position is so rough. It's so bad that if you're streaming, he could be, if you're streaming the position in a deep league, he could be a viable option. But I wouldn't rank him inside the top 20 or probably even inside the top 25 tight ends for the week. So you'd have to go really, really deep before I say, let's start Jeff Driscoll. Because he'll basically be the light version of Taysom Hill. he's not as explosive and, big play ability as a Taysom Hill. But he's, the way he played this past week, he's going to run a little bit. He's going to throw a little bit. That could be just enough to get him a handful of points. That's going to outscore a decent amount of those tight ends. So while I'm not doing it necessarily, I don't play on any leagues on Yahoo anyway. It is viable. It would be viable, but we have to know the other options, I guess. Swift, Pittman, or Dobbins, half PPR. I'm going to go J.K. Dobbins here. I'm going to go J.K. Dobbins. Got a great matchup against the Browns. But he's another one that, unless he's catching a lot of passes, which is probably not going to, that offense, with backup quarterbacks, not going to be great. The floor is low for J.K. Dobbins. Pick 2, Travis Etienne, Saquon Barkley, Kenneth Walker. So right before I went live, we got the notification that Kenneth Walker is going to be good to go for Thursday night this week. So I'm going to play Kenneth Walker. I'm going to trust that he's healthy, that he's going to play. We're going to play Kenneth Walker. And then I'm going to play Saquon Barkley. Travis Etienne has been disappointing. I know Saquon has been too, but the thing with Etienne, he's not catching passes. I think the most passes he's had, or most targets he's had in the game, has been 3. He was receptions. But either way, he's not been super active in the passing game, which has been surprising considering that coming out of Clemson, one of the things we liked about him was his ability as a receiver out of the backfield. But he hasn't been that this year for Jacksonville. He's got that foot, that he injured a couple weeks ago that we have to consider might be holding him back in his performance these last 2 weeks. So I'm comfortably starting Saquon Barkley and Kenneth Walker over Travis Etienne this week. Oh, yeah. If you have Njoku, obviously, as you know, you're not starting Jeff Driscoll over Njoku. Njoku, I think I've got him ranked as my tight end 3 this week. One of my biggest hits preseason, one of my preseason takes that I really smashed on this year, which very exciting because I've loved Njoku for a long time. Just one of these athletic freak guys at that position. It's so cool to see him finally breaking out. Let's take a few on TikTok and then we'll get out of here. Ayuk or Dobbins? I'm going to go Brandon Ayuk. With no Deebo Samuel, I feel a lot better about Ayuk. Burrow or Fields? Yeah, like I said a few minutes ago, I was making my rankings last night for Week 15. And I was debating between Burrow and Fields. I ultimately went with Fields as my QB4 and then Burrow as my QB5. But honestly, this is one of those situations where I don't feel real strong. I love them both. They're both top 5 quarterbacks. I don't feel super strongly one way or the other. I'm leaning Fields because he gives you that ability on the ground. But Burrow has been great as well. Let's see. Zonovan Knight, Zay Jones, Michael Pittman, Kenneth Walker. Pick one. We're going to go Kenneth Walker there. Judy or McKinnon in the flex. I'll probably go. I don't think it's going to be a big Jerick McKinnon week. This is going to be a Pacheco week going against the Texans. They're not going to have to pass the ball a lot. They're just going to grind it out with Pacheco. With that said, I'm not super in tune with starting Jerry Jeudy either. I guess we have to go Jeudy if Sutton sits. But I don't love it. I guess we'll go Jeudy. Evans, Ayuk, or Jerry Jeudy? Yeah, let's go Mike Evans. I know he's been very disappointing, but Was it this last week? Or was it the week before where he had that long touchdown, was called back? Would have completely changed everything for him. I'm going to stick with Mike Evans there. Garrett Wilson, Christian Watson, or Tyler Lockett. These are all really good starts. But I'm going to go Garrett Wilson. I have him inside my top 10 wide receivers this week. He's done. I mean, I know this past week wasn't as, he cooled off a little bit, but he's been really, really productive with any quarterback not named Zach Wilson. Now we got the Lions. Could be a really nice shootout. A lot of points scored in that game. So I'm going to go Garrett Wilson. Start 3, J.K. Dobbins, Travis Etienne, Brian Robinson, David Montgomery, Rashad White, or Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah. So this one's tough. Let me pull up my rankings. I think I know where I want to go, but I just... yeah, I'm going to go... Who is it? J.K. Dobbins, ETN, Brian Robinson. We can throw Brian Robinson out. I don't know. Let's go Pacheco. We're starting 3. I'm going to go Pacheco. We're going to go ETN. And then we're going to go Rashad White. That's what I'll do there. Should I start Kenneth Walker even against the 49ers? Yeah, I would do it. I'm fine with it. Should I start 2 Amari Cooper or start 2 Amari Cooper, Devontae Smith, Kenneth Walker? Yeah, give me the 2 wide receivers. Normally, I would say let's get Kenneth Walker out there in this scenario, but if you have 2 good wide receivers like that, guy coming off an injury on a short week, tough defense. Let's go with the wide receivers there. ETN or Pittman, I'll go ETN. Mike White or Deshaun Watson. Mike White or Deshaun Watson. So White has a nice matchup going against the Lions. But it's hard to sit Deshaun Watson. I have Deshaun Watson ranked ahead. So I guess we'll go Watson, but I do feel like White is a safe play as well. Top 15 quarterback this week. Thoughts on Zonovan Knight? My thoughts on him is this is his backfield. This is his backfield. We saw Michael Carter come back. Knight was playing, had a significant share of that offense with Carter out. And then Carter comes back and he continues to maintain that significant share. So I'm rolling with Zonovan Knight. Let's see where I have him ranked. I have him ranked as my RB14 this week, going against the Lions. I'm very excited to play Zonovan Knight this week. Brock Purdy or Tua in the snow. Do we know that it's going to snow in Buffalo yet? Do we know that for sure? I'm still going Tua unless I know it's like a blizzard condition. If it's snowing, I don't care. I don't care if it's snowing. But if it's like blizzard conditions with the wind and it's just like you can't even see type of, then we'll reconsider. But as of right now, I'm definitely playing Tua over Purdy. Zay Jones or Christian Kirk? I think we still have to go Christian Kirk. He's been a little bit more consistent, I guess. But Zay Jones has been awesome. Zay Jones is another one of these guys that I talked about on a loop during the preseason, even during the season. This is a guy that we need to at least have on our radar. And he's had target shares over these last 4 weeks. His target shares have been 25%, 38%, 21%, and 29%. Trevor Lawrence is playing really well. So I think Zay probably gives you a higher ceiling. Kirk might be the safer choice, but he also has a ceiling as well. They're kind of going back and forth. And it's a Kirk week. It's a Zay Jones week. Kirk week is Zay Jones week. It's been great that Marvin Jones has been pretty much phased out of that offense. I lean Christian Kirk still. Evan Ingram or Mark Andrews. What? I know Evan Ingram just lit it up. I know it. I know. But come on, are we at that point where we're starting Evan Ingram over Mark Andrews? I don't think so. Yeah, Andrews has been terrible for the basketball. I don't care. It's Mark Andrews and it's Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram has been terrible 70% of the season. All right. What else do we got? Dave Montgomery or Terry McLaurin, non-PPR. Yeah, I think we'll still go Dave Montgomery there. What about Cole Kmet or Andrews? I'm still going Andrews. Still doing it. St. Brown or Walker in the flex, full PPR. Definitely St. Brown. Pacheco or Walker. I'm going to go Walker, but this could be a Pacheco week. Definitely a big Pacheco week. I might talk myself into starting Pacheco over Walker, though. Walker coming off the injury. I haven't thought about this one too much. Walker coming off the injury, right? On a short week against the 49ers. And then you got Pacheco, right? Pacheco going against the Texans. You know they're going to kill the Texans, right? We know that. They're going to have a big lead. They're going to be leading throughout. They're not going to have to pass the ball a lot. So I would go Pacheco. Now that I'm working my way through it, let's go Pacheco over Kenneth Walker. Pacheco over McKinnon this week for sure. I don't know if that's what you're trying to say, but you got your signs flipped if you are. I'm not doing McKinnon over Pacheco because McKinnon, he exploded. He exploded this past week. It was awesome. A lot of it came on that big kind of incredible flip that Patrick Mahomes had there. That was just classic Mahomes. We can't expect that to be repeated, right? But this is like the quintessential game script Pacheco game. Pacheco, he's going to get a ton of carries against the Texans. It's the Texans, right? McKinnon, because it'll be a blowout and all he needs is a few catches to outscore Pacheco. I'm saying Pacheco because it's going to be a blowout. So in the game script, in the blowout, right? In the blowouts, becomes a Pacheco game. When the team is working with the lead, they're going to turn around, hand the ball off. No, yeah, he might throw all over them early in the game, right? Early, maybe the first quarter they're getting out to a 20-0 lead, and then they're just going to turn around, hand it to Pacheco 20, 25 times, just like they did against the Rams, like they did against the Rams a few weeks back. Just going to give it to Pacheco. He's going to score the touchdowns. Pacheco has been getting more involved in the passing game as well. be 35-7 by half, and McKinnon will be in for the rest of the game. McKinnon is not their garbage time running back. I don't know why you think that. McKinnon is their passing game running back. McKinnon is the guy that we want to play over Pacheco in the competitive games. In the games where they have to score a lot of points. They have to throw the ball a lot. They're playing from the start of the first quarter all the way through the game. You know what I mean? I know that was very confusing the way I said it. But those are the McKinnon weeks. And when they're playing the Chargers, they're playing the Dolphins, they're playing the Bills. Those are the McKinnon weeks. That's what I mean. They need to win this game. Of course, they don't. They're going to win the game. All they got to do is step on the field. They're going to win this game. The reason I'm not saying that McKinnon gets that work because they need to win the game. He gets that work because it's a competitive game from start to finish. They're not grinding out the clock at the end in the fourth quarter, in the third quarter. Heck, against the Texans, it's going to be in the second quarter. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but this is a Pacheco game. The Cowboys, if you're going to compare the Cowboys to the Chiefs, I don't know what to tell you. The Cowboys struggle because of the Cowboys. They didn't struggle because the Texans have this great defense. But I don't see how McKinnon gets a ton of targets, a ton of receptions, if they're throwing the ball 30 times and then running the ball the rest of the game. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Start one. Amon-Ra. Is that? No, that's Alvin Kamara. Kenneth Walker or Travis Etienne. Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker, Travis Etienne. I know Etienne's been brutal, but so has Kamara. He's been brutal. I know he's without Mark Ingram, but really, I'm going to go Etienne. I got Etienne ranked 2 spots ahead of Alvin Kamara this week. Dobbins or DeAndre Hopkins? Let's go DeAndre Hopkins. ETN or Zonovan Knight. I'm going to go Zonovan Knight. Zonovan Knight has been getting a ton of work in that Jets backfield, and that game could shoot out going against the Lions. And the Lions, they got a terrible defense, which is what makes them so awesome for fantasy, because you can score fantasy points against them, and they are constantly having to put the pedal to the metal and score a ton of points themselves, which makes all their offensive players great. Love the Lions. Dulcich or Njoku? I'm going to go Njoku. James Conner, Mike Williams, or Jerry Jeudy? Give me Mike Williams. Christian Watson or Chris Olave? That one's a good one. That one's a tough one. Christian Watson. So Christian Watson has been riding the unbelievable touchdown rate. Unsustainable, but you kind of got to ride it while it's happening, right? You got to just ride it. Whereas Chris Olave has been dominating all season long. He gets the air yards. He gets the targets. He's got no target competition in that offense. But then he's also got Andy Dalton as his quarterback. But he's got a great matchup this week against the Falcons. I know their secondary is like their strength of their team. But it's not enough to deter me from starting Chris Olave. I'm going to go Chris Olave over Christian Watson. But I think that's a good place to stop. We've been going at this for a while now. We're at 51 minutes. So I think this is a good place to stop. We'll be back Saturday night with the usual show, answering all your questions. And Sunday morning, maybe. I got some stuff to do on Sunday. I don't know if I'll be available Sunday morning, but we'll definitely do the Saturday night show, answering all your questions. And if I didn't get to your questions, just check out everything we're doing at yardsperfantasy.com. All my rankings are there. You can use our start sit tool if I didn't get to your question. So you just plug in, you just go to yardsperfantasy.com/start-sit. Just plug in the 2 players that you're having a question about, and it's going to spit out exactly my answer because it uses my rankings as well as the Fantasy Pros consensus. It shows you both. So if you don't trust my rankings, you get the consensus rankings on top of it. That's a really cool tool. Just download the Yards Per Fantasy app. It's right on there with my rankings, articles, all that shit. And make sure you're getting on Underdog Fantasy, BetUS. Use that promo code YARDSPER. $100 deposit match at Underdog. 125% deposit bonus at BetUS. Thanks, guys.